The Charlotte Hornets picked up right where they left off pre-All-Star break. They win again. It's their fourth consecutive victory. David Walker makes his weekly appearance to talk all about it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to, but faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. There's Doug Branson. As always, you can find his work on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Wearing the draft hat. If you watch us on YouTube, you can see Doug repping the hats as always. And there's David in his beanie making his weekly appearance. You can follow
Bundled
him
up like I'm in Indiana.
You really are. Yeah. You're coming straight back from Naptown, baby. It's David Walker on the Locked On Hornets podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at David B. Walker. And of course, I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. All right, the Hornets just aren't going to lose again. That's the joke everybody keeps rolling with. Eric Collins signed off last night by saying, you know, Dell, a smart man I really respect, really smart about basketball, said the Hornets just may never lose again. And I'm beginning to think that's going to be true. They beat the Utah Jazz. It's their fourth straight victory. They won this game 115-107. David, we'll start with you as the guest, but not really. What did you notice about the Charlotte Hornets' fourth victory in a row with this new group of guys? Like, for me, I felt like they didn't even play as well as they had the first three games, and they still won. Like, they're just fundamentally better, right? Like, it's hard to describe. They're a much better basketball team, and it didn't feel like they gave their best performance. Grant Williams was shooting the lights out, but even Brandon Miller wasn't amazing. Yet they still found a way to get a win on the road. This is not what we were watching pre-All-Star break.
Yeah, and they got out-rebounded by a good margin. You know, I think that was something they were looking out for against the Utah Jazz, but they made up for it in other areas. You know, they forced, I think, 19 turnovers. They outshot the Jazz by a wide margin from the three-point line, which I think
will do it.
Yeah, that will help a lot. So that if they want to keep the winning streak going, it would help to keep shooting 50% from three and having Grant Williams make like 6 of them or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that was one of my takeaways too. It was like, usually if they get killed on the boards or if they are down big in some stat, like, they don't have any other way to make it up. Like, everything else has to be perfect. Now they found other ways to, like I said, offset that with their defense and their turnovers and their shooting. But yeah, I mean, it helps when you've got guys that can get out there and make impact on the game. And that's what they did at the trade deadline. They got a couple more guys they could trust to go out there and do it. And you're seeing it, like, you know, people that haven't watched them prior to the All-Star break watched that Jazz game and said, wait a second, this is not the Hornets team that I had been used to not watching. This is a different Hornets team with new players. Where did they come from? They got several from the Thunder. That's a good way to do things. But they're seeing it. They made moves at the deadline to get adults and players that can play in the NBA. We've harped on that. And against a team like the Jazz, who, you know, the Jazz are kind of an odd situation. I was seeing some disgruntled Jazz fans come across the timeline reacting to quotes like that about the Hornets doing good things, and the Jazz didn't do much of anything. Stood pat, had a bunch of rookies, had a bunch of young guys out there who did perform for them. But, you know, the Hornets found a way to win. Doug, was EC talking about you, or was he talking about himself? Was he stealing from you again, saying that a very smart man who knows basketball says they're never going to use again?
Listen. Again. Oh, no.
It sounds a lot like me. I'll just say that.
That's what I don't
know if he was referencing me or not. You know, I think it's safe to assume he was. So let's just do that.
It is safe to assume. What did you notice from this game, Doug?
Well, the bad third quarter returned, right? They got outscored 38-29 in that third quarter, and it looked like, this Hornets team was up against the ropes. Vegas had them, as a 10-point dog, and it was like, oh, is this going to be the end? But the important thing is they scored 28 points in that third quarter. 2 weeks ago, that would have been a 38-14 margin, and it would have been all she wrote because the Hornets wouldn't have even if it were 38-29 a couple of weeks ago, the Hornets wouldn't have had the firepower to come back in that fourth quarter, but they had that, and a lot of that thanks to Grant Williams, who scored 24 points off the bench, and I think 6 total made threes. Bridges was dominant at the end of that fourth quarter, sealing the game away, bulldozing past Markkanen, and then he had the ISO pull-up long two over John Collins that helped seal the game. It was just little stuff everywhere. It was Trey Mann deflections in the first half. It was Micic really just commanding the floor in that backup point guard position, moving defenses, driving, kicking. Everybody was deflecting in this game. Defense absolutely won them this game, and three-point shooting, the same things that we've been seeing over and over from the Hornets in these fourth quarters. And then Brandon Miller, who had I would say, one of his lesser efficient shooting nights, was able to secure an important defensive rebound. He ripped it away from John Collins, and that was an important defensive rebound because those are the little plays that the Hornets have traditionally let slip away and let teams get back into games. They did not allow it to happen, and the Hornets win. It's a beautiful thing to watch right now. Vegas is going to learn, okay? I think they've got the Hornets as a 13-point dog.
We're missing out on this. North Carolina lawmakers, you're screwing us right now. We're missing out on all this money we could be making. By the time they get this thing in passed, they may have caught up to the Hornets. But, yeah, Brandon Miller, dude, how about when he not only ripped that ball away from John Collins, who I think was arguing with the ref, on a drive, he ripped the ball away from a Jazz defender in the lane and was able to put it up for a bucket too. I mean, I think he heard you guys bad-mouthing him after the All-Star weekend and just wanted to come out and show some extra fight, man. He's looking ready to go.
Please, more.
Keep listening, Brandon. So, there were two, right? Like when Doug was mentioning the defensive play from Brandon Miller, I actually thought he was pretty good defensively in this game. Yeah. There was a highlight in the first half where he's fighting through a bunch of off-ball screens. God, I forget who he was on, but it might have been Colin Sexton, like borderline face guarding him. But then it was the lob that he deflects away. So he's having to pay attention to this different action over here, where they're trying to free up Colin, they can't do it, and then there's a cut towards the basket, like on baseline, and Brandon recognizes it and is able to block that lob away when he wasn't even supposed to be there, right? Like he just goes out and kind of in a rogue position and makes that play. I thought he was good defensively, as you mentioned, and the whole team, right? Like we can focus on that end. The deflections you mentioned, Doug, I thought team defense looks way different right now. So the guys will still get beat off ball, but the difference is other people are helping once that happens. Yep. And so I think that's the point. Steve Clifford mentioned it a million times in the first half of the season. If you can't keep the ball in front of you, then it's going to get you in trouble. And they do better at that, but they still don't have Dennis Smith Jr. out there. Like it's Cody Martin, and then it's going to be tough to keep the ball in front of them. This is who they are. But now you have a bunch of smart defenders that can make up and just know the best possible thing they can do if the basketball gets past that first line of defense. And I think that's where you see the deflections. The guys just know where to be in the passing lanes, and then guys are coming over to help, and they're flying around. Like team defense is fun, as fun as defense can be, right? Because everybody's flying all around, and then you're getting stops, you're getting deflections. It's like, yes, this is a great job they're doing. And Steve Clifford, it seems like, feels the same way. Yeah. There's a big old difference there on the other end of the court. Go ahead.
You can see it. Help is faster. Help is more reliable. These closeouts are right on target. You're not seeing guys just fly by offensive players, and you're not. What you saw more previously were short closeouts that were just not effective at all. But guys are moving on a rope right now. I mean, you can see multiple people reacting. I'll point out one other guy. Micic is really good, especially in transition, of communicating, okay, you're going down, I'm staying up. It's little things that you're seeing that you go, I didn't notice that before they added Grant Williams, Micic, Mann, and Curry. Just communication is happening, and Bertans too. Oh my God, 9 points.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about defense, but 9 points in under 7 minutes. I hope that hyperextension that he suffered on the left knee on that final three, I hope that's not a big deal, because when you can get 9 points from a guy and only play him 7 minutes, that is an absolute, that's game genie. That is a cheat code.
I know. I mean, it's just amazing to look over there right now. And during the game, when the first couple breaks in the lineup are coming, and they scan over to the scores table, and it's Seth Curry,
I'm
it's
excited.
Grant Williams, it's even Bertans. Once you get down to Bertans, like, these guys have been there. They have had minutes in the NBA, right? Like, it's not, and you could kind of see it in the starters and in the guys on the floor. Like, they know that it's not just going to completely fall off a cliff when they go to the bench, right? There's going to be some reinforcements coming in. I mean, Seth hit a couple of just absolute knockdown
Middies.
Elbow jumpers last
He's the
night.
king of not just last night. He has been the king of that little elbow jumper.
And they were big. I mean, a lot of the shots were big last night, especially when they got down by 7, had to fight their way back. But yeah, it's just a completely different team right now. I mean, it really is. It's amazing what you can do when you just shake up that roster a little bit, add a few new fresh legs. That's the other thing to keep in mind. Like Trey Mann and Micic, I don't think they were playing a whole lot.
They were not.
In OKC, they're coming in the last 27 games here. They're going to have a lot in the tank to give to this team, so they can go full bore.
Well, and last thing for me, yes, it is amazing because we've seen so much bad basketball from this team, but also you could understand if somebody just explained it to you in basic terms. Hey, they have an 8-man, 9-man rotation, including Bertans, and 5 of them are new. Over 50% of your rotation are new basketball players. Okay, you're right. That probably does dramatically change your product that you put out there on the court. If over 50% of your rotation is completely new, and over 50% of your rotation are guys that will be in the NBA next year, getting a look, getting some run wherever, and everybody else is G League or cut, yeah, probably will change dramatically. And now you have Steve Clifford working with some players that deserve to be in the league right here, right now. And you've got a 4-game winning streak with a different look group. It's great. It's fantastic. All right, let's move on. Let's continue to talk about the good. I don't want to stop it. Let's just continue.
There's so much more. I've got more in the tank. I've got much more to talk about on this game.
All right, you heard the man. Let's get to it. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Doug, of course, has plenty more in the tank. He will share with you on the other side coming up in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. If you give your stylist your size, style, budget preferences, you can order boxes when and how you want to. No subscription required, and they send just 5. They can send 5 just for you pieces, plus outfit recommendations, pro styling advice, and you can keep up with everything that works for you. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, Doug, take us wherever you want to go. We did the deflections, the defense, team defense. We were praising that end of the floor. Should we go with Grant Williams going for 6 3-pointers? Because he was on fire last night from deep. You want to start there?
Well, it's funny because he also had 0 rebounds. So I thought this was a very interesting game because you've been on and off with him and rebounding. But look, when you're going to hit 6 threes, you can afford to not have a single rebound in my mind.
The 0 rebounds, while maybe interesting to look back on if it continues, that is not the story of Grant Williams' performance. The story is him continuing to just be even some of the shots that he missed, they were halfway down and then just rimmed out. He was on point last night in Utah.
Yeah, but David, if you're locked in defensively and you're locked in defensively and you're hitting threes, that's going to cover a lot of sins, right?
Yeah, and he's maybe he didn't corral any rebounds, but he's throwing that body around, underneath there, and it's I feel like it is helping them collectively get a few rebounds here and there. So like even if he didn't get credited with any last night, he's still taking up some space inside there, especially on the defensive end where they did get they got slaughtered on the boards, but he's making himself known out there, and I cannot wait to see the Draymond, Grant Williams. Something's going down tonight. I can feel it.
Death lineup versus death lineup.
I know. But the 6 3-pointers. Now, you guys have hinted at it. Like, at some point, he's not going to hit 6 3-pointers, right?
At some point,
I'm ready to believe anything.
Maybe.
I don't know. He was challenged. He was challenged defensively in this game. I thought we stretched the bounds of Grant Williams at the 5 in this game.
Mm-hmm. I thought so too.
Right. I mean, there was the one play where like he was running back into transition, and instead of fully closing out, he just like clapped his hands, which is an interesting defensive strategy. It doesn't work at all. Doesn't help. Is not useful at all. But it is an interesting defensive strategy to just clap your hands.
No, I thought like. So, yeah, I didn't want to focus on the rebounding, too, but I actually thought he was right. He's physical. The defensive thing I'll give him credit for is because he's shorter, because he is a wide human being and he uses that body. It's really hard for a Walker Kessler or a John Collins when they get the ball in the post to move them. And so they don't. So he stalls out post-up possessions. That's great. I thought he was pretty terrible rebounding last night. Like, I do think that's true. I think Walker Kessler, I think the size, I think John Collins was just jumping over him. Like, athleticism and length, they're going to be able to get the boards. And I thought, okay, like, look, he had been good. He had been throwing his body around, boxing dudes out. I thought last night he was terrible. But offensively, when you hit 6 threes, yeah, you're going to take double digits, and he's on point. So I think offensively, you can clear a lot of those mistakes by trading the offensive rebound that goes for 2 points on second chance opportunities. Okay, I'll just go down the other end and shoot a 3 and hit it. And that's what happened with Grant coming off of the bench. So he's a big deal. Like, and in contrast, Micic couldn't buy a shot, just couldn't do it. 8 dimes, that's his game. 0 field goals. The 3-pointers were open. He couldn't connect on them, but at least he was dishing at a high level and finished this game for this team.
I think that's what we should talk about, David, is that that Clifford went with Micic and Martin over Mann and Martin to close out an important game that was close down the stretch. What do you think about that, about Clifford going with Micic and Martin over Mann and Martin to close?
Yeah, I mean, to me, they had enough scoring going with Bridges and Grant Williams, right? And so he could afford to put a little bit of a more mature, maybe a more defensive-oriented lineup out there with Martin especially, but also just probably felt pretty comfortable with having Micic out there. Not that Mann is like played bad, but we didn't necessarily need to see the Hornets speed the game up at that point, especially in the last 2 minutes, right? They were just really trying to control things and keep things as set as they could. So, it's a nice option for him to have, dude. I mean, it has been Ish Smith, right? It has been pick your player, Nick Smith Jr. Closing out these games. So I think it's interesting. Right. I think it's a good option to have. I think, had they been down a little bit more, maybe or had it been close, or, had they needed to get a couple buckets, maybe you see a Trey Man. But I still think Clifford's probably feeling that out. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens, of course, once LaMelo comes back, because he's going to have a couple of different ways he can go to shake that lineup up. But it's nice to have Micic out there, man. I mean, he can control it. He really finds guys. He's just got, we've talked a lot about he's a rookie, but like, look, he's been playing a lot of basketball. I mean, he knows how to control things.
I think so much to a part of what good passing is good timing. And I think Micic's timing is impeccable. And what happens is when he sees somebody open in the corner, he's going to make you more open by then dribbling into the paint and trying to suck that defense in even more so. I mean, the corner 3 is wide open. You could hit it and it'd be a good, fine enough pass, right? Like, that'd be a solid read. Nobody's going to complain about it. Or he could just make that guy more open by drawing the defense in and then kicking out to him to where you don't have anybody within 10 feet of you. I think that happens a lot. I think on fast break opportunities, I was thinking about the difference between LaMelo and Miles in transition compared to Micic and Miles, because in one of those first fast break opportunities in the first half, LaMelo's just throwing a lob up to Miles for him to slam it home, and it's more exciting, and they still connect. But Micic isn't quite sure that that's going to be there, and so he continues to dribble, and then he gets right under the basket, and then he just hits Miles Bridges underneath, and then Miles still ends up with an easy dunk. It's just going to come to you in a very different way. He knows how to get these guys open. He knows what he's just calculating all the time. What do I need to do to create a better shot for these guys? And you saw that on display, even without him being able to hit a shot whatsoever.
And let's not take that for granted, right? Because it's been 4 games, and he's had to figure stuff out with players from the Hornets, players that used to play on the Mavericks. I mean, you've been combining 3 different teams, and they've won 4 straight, and Micic is able to process all of that information and get accustomed to these players with very little practice time and in only 4 games. I mean, that is something that I think you have to appreciate. And I think going with Micic was about distribution, as David was saying, as try to get others involved. But also I think it was a little bit about size as well. I thought, Sexton and George were getting the best of man at times on drives. He was deflecting. He was getting past deflections. But, Walker, you felt the same way too, that, man was struggling a little bit with some of those size matchups that Utah provides at the guard position. So I think it was a little bit about defense as well.
Yeah, I think Man struggled to stay in front of guys in this one, but it doesn't mean he's not trying. It's just it felt like we were giving Man a lot more credit in those first 3 games because, okay, this is a little unexpected. Trey Mann's not known for his defense. We felt like he played pretty well. I didn't see this game, and more so in the first half, to be fair. I don't know if I saw second half.
Good luck staying in front of Sexton, though.
That's what I said. That's what I said. It was a tough matchup, man.
It is, and Colin only had 3 field goals in this game, and so it's not like he was going crazy. He had that mini run where he was feeling himself, but Keontae George was excellent too, and so it just felt like, and the thing is, while Colin Sexton is a tough matchup, man, like the NBA is so talented. There are a lot of Colin Sextons out there in this league, so every game you're going to have a really good point guard, so it's going to be tough.
That's what starting is about, for sure.
Yeah, and so deflections are big, but Trey Mann was good. Like his shot making was great too, and so it was all fine.
This is what makes it difficult on Clifford, right? Because you're right, Walker. Whoever's going to play beside LaMelo is going to take the tougher defensive matchup. So you've got to be sure that guy, whether it's Mann or Martin, can handle that matchup. And we've seen Clifford go with Martin on Trae Young to help shut him down. And that's why I think those step-back threes that Trey Mann hit in the first half were wow moments. And I wrote in Every Hornets Boxscore, like, this guy is playing like he wants to stay in the starting lineup, and he's making comments to Rod Boone about how he can play alongside LaMelo Ball, when the reality is it's going to be, it's going to be Brandon Miller long-term playing the shooting guard position, in my opinion. But, for whatever the short term is, it's either going to be Martin or Mann. I think the advantage still goes to Martin because he has the size and the ability to take that tougher matchup and win it more than he's going to lose it.
Last thing, because I want to focus on all-star takes from David in the third segment. Plus, we got to get to shoe. We got to get all the shoe takes. You mentioned Miles Bridges. We should shed a little more light on him in the fourth quarter because he had 10 points in that stretch. He took over, and that's what you want from somebody that has the consistency here. He's got the staying power. Brandon Miller's first year is this year. You have 5 new guys after the deadline. Terry Rozier, PJ, who would take over at times, LaMelo, they're either injured or off the team. So it should be Miles' time. It should be. And Miles showed up and went on the 10 points that he scored, made three, tough step backs. And then even in the fourth quarter, the Hornets went on that 14-0 run, and that was from the 10:37 to 5:16 mark. They went on that 14-0 run, and then they pulled ahead 102 to 94, and then Miles went to work to close it out when they were, starting to battle back and forth. Got a little lucky on what was clearly a moving screen, by the way, from Colin Sexton. So, be it. But Lauri Markkanen hit the three. It was the right call. It just felt like that fourth quarter, Doug, you kind of mentioned them bouncing back. Miles Bridges being as dominant as he was, and then the whole team showing up when it mattered. It's different. We're not used to seeing that.
No,
the Miles thing. The Miles thing is fascinating to me because with each game like that, obviously, where he makes a big impact and where he comes up, in the clutch and does win a game along with Grant Williams. I just like before the All-Star break, first part of the season, I was pretty convinced he was not going to be around past maybe the trade deadline or maybe certainly this offseason. But I think there's going to be some thinking going on with this. I mean, how do you look at the play on the court of what he's done and what he's bringing? You could shake off the beginning of the season a lot to rust and, maybe he's rounding into form. If that's the guy he's going to be moving forward, they're going to have a lot to think about as far as how they handle that relationship after this year is over, especially if it ends, in the next 27 games. If they get LaMelo back out there, I don't know, man. I don't know how it shakes out after this, but he's certainly making a case that he's a valuable piece of this build.
Yeah, Miles looks way better offensively, and I think it's two reasons. One is that there's so much more space on the floor to not only for him to drive, but also that like ISO shot that he hit over Collins. Like you can ISO because there's going to be a tough decision for a defense to throw a double or shade a guy his way. He's just going to have a lot more room to operate. But the second one that we haven't really talked about a lot is the fact that he's doing a lot less distributing himself. He's doing a lot less passing, and he was turning the ball over a ton prior to the deadline because he was being asked to do things that Miles Bridges, the player profile that is Miles Bridges, should not be asked to do. And when you're turning the ball over, I think that does have like a psychological or confidence effect, like, man, I messed up. And now you're in your own head thinking about that while you're trying to do other things. Okay, clear the decks. You don't have to do that anymore because you have Micic, you have Man, you have other players who can take care of that and let Miles do what he does, which is bulldoze over Markkanen for an important 2-point shot to help you win a game.
Great win for the Hornets last night, 4 in a row, baby. It's a new look, and it's fantastic. Let's move on. Let's get to these all-star takes coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Just like we do every year, we go to David Walker for the official all-star preview and all-star recap. He's here for a reason, folks. He's also going to give you a shoe you got with LaMelo releasing a new shoe. Won't want to miss that either. It's coming up next. Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week.
There better be a Hornet in here.
Long.
I'm just going to stop you right now. There better be a Hornet in here right now or I'm going to lose it.
There is. You will not be losing it. I will continue. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Okay, you got Ayo Dosunmu in there, somebody that could have been a Hornet at the trade deadline with Patrick Williams still out, Torrey Craig hurting his knee, Dosunmu's minutes and his floor game has improved significantly. That's cool. Got Keontae George, just played against Keontae George. That's
that was
pretty
my guy
good
in the
pickup.
draft. That was
good.
my guy.
No, well, here's another one. Scoot Henderson. He's kind of your guy. A little bit.
I was kind of like 50-50 on him, I think.
Yeah, no, it could have gone either way, but he is the starting point guard for the rest of the season. And then we get to Trey Mann.
Yeah,
Trey Mann.
There we go.
Now, what's he says Trey Mann should be grabbed by everybody because LaMelo Ball status is still up in the air. So you need to go ahead and pick him up in whatever fantasy league you play in, right? It is not differentiated on what style you play. The problem is, I wonder if we waited too long into the week for you to pick up Trey Mann. Like, if I wish we had eBay Motors maybe on Monday so you could have reaped the benefits. But now if LaMelo comes back, it's like, it hurts a little bit more. Still be effective, though. Still will be effective. Thanks again to eBay Motors. We appreciate them with over 122 million parts. For your number one ride or die, you can now make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or you get your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets. All right, David, this is your time to shine, baby. We do this every single year. We did it pre-All-Star break. what did David Walker think about what we saw during the All-Star break Saturday night? A little bit different than what we saw on Sunday with the All-Star game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. And we've had a lot of All-Star discussion this week, right? I mean, this is something the players asked for. They asked for a longer break, and they got it. They've asked for a lot of stuff. This is a players' league. So if we're just talking strictly about Sunday night, I think everybody has a hand in what that has become. I think it's clear that the players are not taking it as seriously as a lot of people would like them to, or make it a fun game. And listen, it is the All-Star game. Like, people are getting worked up over this because there hadn't been basketball since last night, and it's something to talk about. But I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. I mean, you look at some of the skills competition stuff on Saturday night. You got Scotty Barnes throwing a over the head half court shot. That was when I really knew that, man, they do not care at all. And that's a skills competition. You had Anthony Edwards talking about shooting with his left hand, and that was a little disappointing for me, because I'm a big Ant-Man fan, and I thought he might be the guy that go out there and try and get in somebody's face. But if he's already joking about stuff before it happens, like, what are we doing? LeBron,
what are we doing with those Jordan comparisons, right? I mean, people are a little too quick with those MJ comparisons with Ant-Man.
Mamba mentality, guys. Is that the Mamba mentality we're looking at? Anything's a competition, right? I mean, LeBron didn't even show up until Sunday, and then he left at halftime, basically. So I think a lot of that has got to fall on him. But it's the salaries and the money is different than it was back in the day, right? Like, these guys don't need to make an impression on All-Star to add to their bottom line anymore. So there's a lot of different discussions going on about it. I still enjoy the event. I think Sunday made Saturday probably look a little better than it was. They got to figure something out with the skills competition. I thought the Steph Sabrina stuff was pretty cool. Was really cool. That was really fun to see them both kind of perform on a big stage. And the 3-point contest is going to continue to be the marquee thing, I think, because you have all-stars in it. Hello, you have guys that are trying to win it. You have names in that competition. That works a lot. I do have to give a little tip of the hat to Mac McClung. I mean, you poo-poo him a little bit because, he's not in the NBA and he's in the NBA dunk contest. But he did give us a jolt of energy for 2 years in a row. And I think that was cool, no matter how horrible the judges are. I think from that standpoint, I really do think, and I can't remember who gave me this idea or who put it out there, but like, maybe they should just do the dunks, right? And then rank them. Get rid of this 58 or 48, 47. Like, they clearly don't know what any of these numbers are. Just rank the best dunks.
What are these numbers?
Yeah, round by round, and do it that way. That might be a little bit, because Doug, you always say, what are we judging? We don't know. What do these numbers mean? They mean nothing.
The people who are calling it are like, that looked like a good dunk, or that didn't look like a good dunk. That is like the extent of the analysis that we get. No, like, oh, well, he went, this many degrees. Watch any kind of Olympic event, like a snowboarding event, and you're going to hear words and language that has been developed over time, and you're not going to know what any of it means. But you know what it means? It means that there's been some thought into what is good and what is not good. And when you're listening, even if you don't know what it means, you're confident that someone knows what it means. And so that gives you confidence that what you're seeing is actually good or actually bad. And that, I think, is pretty critical for people who are watching to get some enjoyment out of it. You got to know what you're watching and whether it's good or bad. And you got to trust that they know. And there's just no trust. It's just, we're all winging it out there.
Yeah, and that goes to the skills competition. I mean, I actually turned that on a little late, and I was like, what is happening? What is the scoring?
It's so bad.
It's very bad. I actually I like it, but like, they keep changing it. No one knows what they're watching. No one knows how this is being scored. People are moving around all the time. Just give us like a pinpoint passing competition or something. Give us a long range contest where people have to shoot jumpers. Hello, they're shooting jumpers in the game from half court, and some people are making them and they get their MVP. But do something like that. But it's not going to go away, I don't think. It's the Super Bowl of it's corporate Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl for the NBA. It's the weekend. There's too much involved now for them to say, we're not going to do it. I mean,
Well,
they're
and people
putting
are
out
still
new
watching
requirements.
too. Like I
Right.
know the the ratings were up
For
this
now.
time, but people are still watching, and so
For
yeah,
now.
that's true for now. But as long as that for now still exists, they're going to keep making it, and so you're going to have to try to figure out how to make it better. But my last thing before we get to Shoe You Got, like the skills challenge, it feels like it should be fun. Obstacle course, timed, one run through, give it your all, done. Let's move on.
Nickelodeon
These guys
guts.
could not care less. Like
Dude.
I understand the All-Star game. Yes, it's terrible. I want it to be fixed. I want them to compete at some place better than 0, which is what's happening right now.
Right.
But the skills challenge, I mean, you've got a minute to go out there and compete at 100%. Go ahead and compete at 100%. But we're going left hand. Like this should be fun. The idea of a basketball obstacle course should be fun. But you're talking about giving us 1 minute worth your time, and they just are like, no, this is stupid. Let's just move on.
Scotty Barnes, hate to harp on you, my man. First time All-Star on the All-Star team in the skills competition, and he's basically, I mean, half jogging. You know, I mean, the effort was just not there. And I mean, there's an overall feeling of not wanting to look dumb, like to be cool. And I get that. That is pervasive across the league now and in the entire weekend. But it's a little disheartening to hear that like Larry Bird and Dr. J went into the locker room beforehand and were like, guys, you know, give us something. And then they immediately just said, nah, we're not going to do that.
Bleep those guys. Who are they?
Get
No,
out of
I'm
here,
sure
old man.
half of them were like, who are those guys?
Okay, so let's go to Shoe You Got here.
I think I saw that
David.
guy
Well,
on the documentary, the Jordan doc. He was talking to Michael Jordan, I think.
Didn't he curse at MJ? Let's get this guy out of here. All right, what do you have? What do you have with LaMelo dropping a new shoe, David? How do you
Guys,
like it?
I don't know when LaMelo's coming back, but I know he's dropping a new shoe today. It might be right now. It's probably
Yep,
if you're
right
listening
now
to this,
as we
it just
speak.
dropped. The Blue Hive version of his LaMelo, third iteration of LaMelo. I kind of like this one, guys. The blue, they say it's blue. It looks really teal, but I think it'll work with the Hornets uniforms. It's a mostly black upper with little, you know, scratches of blue in there. I like them, guys. I mean, they look comfortable. I'd love to see LaMelo wearing them in a game, even better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're dropping today, guys. So we got to keep the folks updated. New shoes for LaMelo coming out. I like them. You guys have seen the picture of them, right? Or no?
Yeah, no, I like them too. I think they look good. So yeah, we'll see.
I just
how many
hope they
people
support
get it.
his ankles. That's all. I mean, he can't. I don't know
They
how
do
much
look a
his
little
brand
low.
can
They
take
look a
another
little
ankle
low.
injury. I mean, people are being really hard on these Pumas right now. So,
Yeah, that's
I know.
true.
Scoot,
All right.
Scoots
but
and
it
the
is good.
Pumas.
It is good that he keeps dropping shoes because there is incentive for him to like. He's got to get back.
Right.
He's got
Let's
to
get out
play.
there.
Like, let's go. You can't sit and sell shoes.
It's all about the brand too. You know, go ahead and sell those things, man. So if it's all about the brand, go out there, sell it. It'd be great to see you play, and we'll see exactly how he is mixed in with some of these new players that the Hornets have that are allowing them to win games. 4-game winning streak heading into the weekend, heading in tonight, where they'll
13 tonight, baby.
13-point dogs against Golden State. So we'll see. We'll recap that game on Monday and everything else taking place over the weekend. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make sure you go check out everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can find Doug Branson's work there, also on his Twitter page at Doug Branson LOH. You can follow David on Twitter at David B. Walker and me at Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., 92.7 FM on Wes and Walker. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday.